Hello, Sooner Nation, OU Insider subscribers, Coach, Brian Clinton enthusiasts, people who, Brian, I'll be honest, I didn't think of one this weekend. I didn't think of a third one. I usually come up with it off the top of my head. I can't think of one. People who are ready to listen to this podcast. Oh, that was so bad. Oh, that was so bad. This is another episode of the Oklahoma Drill, fueled by OU Insider and the Rivals Network. I am Jesse Crittenden, and I am joined as always by Coach Sir Esquire Brian Clinton. Brian, do you have a good third thing? Because I didn't have one. I completely and totally botched it.
If you're excited about the Thunder's playoff run sweep,
Well, that's a given.
like,
Yeah.
I guess
Yes, I'm
this
very
isn't my
excited
gig.
about.
This is your gig.
Sorry, I asked you for one and then I totally crapped all over it. Yes, of course, totally excited about the sweep. And we'll see what happens with the Clippers and the Mavs. That series is still going on. The Thunder will get the winner of that series. People who are excited about, I got it. People who are excited about Bedlam softball.
Yeah,
That was the easy one. That
was
was
the
the
lame
obvious one.
How did we miss that?
Why didn't I go to that one? We're going to talk about that, of course, because good Lord, man, this is going to be must see TV this weekend in Norman. You and I will both be in attendance. But before we get to all things Oklahoma State softball, before we get to that this weekend, we got some things that we should talk about real quick before we get into softball. And Brian, I think I'm going to give you the choice here. Are we talking about Gavin Freeman's surprising entrance into the portal and all things portal, or are we talking about how the draft shooken, how it shooked out for for Oklahoma? Which one are we talking about first? Are we talking about Freeman?
Let's go chronological. Let's go draft first.
The draft?
Yeah.
All right. So the draft happened. All right, let's get to Gavin Freeman. I'm kidding. The draft happened over the weekend. As expected, Tyler Guyton went in the first round with the 29th overall pick. That's right. Right? To the Dallas Cowboys. I'll have a little bit to say about that in a little bit because I am a Dallas Cowboys fan, as everybody knows. Dallas Cowboys 2025 Super Bowl champs. But the rest of it, Walter Rouse went in the 5th round to the Minnesota Vikings. Jonah Laulu went in the 7th round to the Colts. And then, of course, the undrafted free agent signings. Andrew Rame goes to the Panthers. McCade Matauer goes to the Chiefs. Isaiah Coe goes to the Colts. Rondale Bothroyd goes to the Bills. Austin Stogner goes to the Falcons. And, of course, the highlight, Drake Stoops goes to the Los Angeles Rams. Brian, I'll open the floor up to you in terms of the 3 drafted guys. Which one is most intriguing to you? And did anything surprise you or stand out to you about where those guys ended up?
Walter Rouse to the Vikings, because I'm a Vikings fan, was the one that I was most interested in, to be completely honest. I love the pick there. Minnesota worked everything around to have 2 excellent first round picks, which I was very happy with. And really, Rouse felt like a really good value in the 5th round. Felt like a guy that, maybe doesn't have the elite tools that you see a guy like Tyler Guyton has, but he's shown the ability to play well at the tackle position. And I think he's it's a great guy to have behind Christian Darrisaw and who they've got up there in Minnesota. So I like that pick. I think the best fit, though, I mean, it's really hard to argue that Tyler Guyton at Dallas isn't the best fit of those 3. And with you being the Dallas guy on this podcast, I'll let you take it from there.
I It seemed like that's where things were headed as we got closer to the weekend, was that Dallas was gonna get him. And it makes sense for a lot of reasons. I mean, they're losing Tyron Smith, which still doesn't feel real to me that he's gonna be in a Jets uniform. Like,
Yeah, that's weird.
what the hell, man? Not that I blame him, but it's a weird thing. And it continues. That's just one of the many things that makes me skeptical about the Cowboys next year. But they needed it. They needed a tackle. And Tyler Guyton, for I think there's a lot of ways you can describe his career, his collegiate career. He just looks like an NFL tackle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just looks like an NFL tackle. He's 6'7". He's obviously got the size. His athleticism is off the charts. Um, and I think he's probably going to come in day one and be the starter. I would be surprised if that's not the case.
Yep.
So I think that pick makes sense from that standpoint. But I almost think, I mean, Guyton was really good when he played last year, Brian, but he's also an interesting guy to kind of talk about because even, he played 9 games last year. He didn't actually play a ton in his college career. He didn't play a ton.
Mm-hmm.
He played a decent amount, but he barely played at TCU. Then I think he started 5 games his junior year. Then he started 9 games last year, didn't play the last few games of the season. I don't know. How high are you on Tyler Guyton's chance to be successful?
So I think the easiest way for me to answer this question is to compare him to Lane Johnson, just with how similar. I mean, there's so many similarities there with position change. Obviously, they both went to Oklahoma. Both are expected to be, very important and really anchor points of offensive lines going forward at the tackle spot. Um, where I think the differences start is Tyler Guyton didn't necessarily show it as he didn't have as much to show as Lane Johnson did by the time he got to the NFL. And so I think the learning curve for Tyler Guyton is going to be much steeper. He's going to be thrust into what, like you said, a starting role with the Cowboys, and there's really not like a whole lot of time for him to figure things out. Now, the elite tools are there. Like a guy that weighs 325 pounds should not move the way that Tyler Guyton does. Like that. That's why he went in the first round. He has all the tools that you need to be a staple offensive tackle in the NFL. It's just a matter of getting the technique down. He is going to face the best athletes in the world. The best athletes in the world are edge rushers in the NFL. Guys like Joey Bosa, Daniil Hunter, like those standout specimens, Khalil Mack, those guys are they are just they're more athletic than I think people realize. Those guys are freaks.
They're
Like there's
freaks.
no there's no other way to put it. And when your job is to keep that guy off of your quarterback, there's a lot of technique that goes into that. So, I think if he is going to reach his potential or his ceiling, you're going to need to see some things in year one. I would err on the side of caution whenever it comes to like writing him off if things don't go well in year one, because I think there is going to be a learning curve. And I do think that he has all the tools necessary to be really good. So I would say if he's not an all rookie guy, yeah, it'd be a little disheartening if he didn't make, like, if he wasn't a standout as a rookie. But give him a couple years, and I think that Guyton's going to be a really really good part for Dallas to build around.
Look, this is a hell of a situation he's walking into. I
Yeah,
mean, it just is. Not only is it the Dallas Cowboys, who are probably, I mean, arguably gets the most attention and of
they're America's
any
team. Yeah,
professional
I
franchise.
hate to say it. I hate
Yeah,
saying that, but they're
yeah,
America's team. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they're arguably have more attention than any other franchise in professional sports. That's
Yeah.
one. Two, you get the state of the Dallas Cowboys where they're coming off another disappointing playoff run, which I don't. The Dallas man, has this just been the offseason of weird passive aggressive podcast sound bites? That's what this has been for the Cowboys. I don't understand it. Damn it, man. It makes me it makes me so mad as a fan. Oh man. There's gonna be so much pressure on this team.
Mhm.
Not to mention, or next year, not to mention that they've still got stuff to figure out, whether that's CeeDee Lamb's extension. What the hell are they doing with Dak Prescott?
Don't fumble that.
Yeah. It's so all that aside, you're walking into a place where you're probably going to be a day one starter as a rookie, and you're replacing Tyron Smith, who, when he's healthy, has been one of the top 5 best tackles in all of football for several years. I think this is really cool from the standpoint of I got to talk to his dad at OU's Pro Day a few weeks ago, and I mean they grew up as Dallas fans. They're
Yeah.
from near that area. I think obviously they were excited to go anywhere, but I think it's pretty cool from their perspective to get to go to Dallas. I mean, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
And from a personal standpoint, it's just fun to see OU guys go to play in Dallas. Just how I mean, what CeeDee Lamb has done. I'm gonna get to watch Tyler Guyton every game or every weekend. That's gonna be pretty cool
Yeah.
from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
But this is not an easy situation he's walking into. And there's going to be a lot of expectations as soon as he walks in the door.
Right.
So I don't know. That's gonna be interesting to watch. We'll see about Rouse and Jonah Laulu. Obviously rooting for those guys. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out in that regard.
Mhm.
Um, of all the undrafted free agents, I think it's pretty clear that Drake Stoops is the most interesting one to talk about. What do you make of that signing? And I mean, him going to the Rams, and can he carve out a role in the NFL?
I think patience is going to be his best friend. If he can just continue, we both know the kind of guy that the Rams are going to get whenever it comes to practice and showing up and doing everything that it takes to get on the field. Like you're not going to find somebody that fits that mold better than Drake Stoops. He's the kind of guy that's going to go and put in the work. For him to fall in a place that's not only going to put him with Sean McVay, but also have him sitting behind one of the better slot receivers, in recent memory, I think that's just going to help him so much as far as developing. So, um, I like the fit. I honestly think if there's a guy out there, if there's an offense out there that's going to really help him reach his potential, in the long run, it's gonna be Los Angeles because Cooper Cup's he's not old yet, but I mean he's over 30, and we're getting on the back end of probably the better parts of his career. So Drake's got an opportunity to go in there and maybe I'm not saying he's going to end up being Cooper Cup, but he is a guy that does have all the opportunity in the world to learn from somebody that's playing at the best at that position, and he is definitely got the tools to be somebody that can make a difference in the slot. So um, I like the pick. I think it's really good. I was disappointed for him that he wasn't picked in the draft, but this is just like this is how Drake Stoops' story has gone, and it just makes way too much sense for it to continue going this way. And I think he'll have success. I don't know what that looks like, but I have little doubt that guy's going to have a hard time finding himself on an NFL roster.
I actually think in some ways it would have been cool to hear him drafted. That would have been
Sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
I actually think in some ways this is kind of best case scenario for him. It
Yeah.
continues not only the theme of his whole career, like you mentioned, but I don't know how many better places he could have ended up than in Los Angeles. I just with Sean McVay is one of the best offensive minds in all of football at any
Yep.
level. And Drake Stoops' whole thing is he's always been overlooked for his size. He's not the fastest guy, but not only his work ethic, but he's just an incredibly he gets open.
Yep.
And I think in a good scheme, somebody who knows his strengths, they can feed into what his strengths are.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's anybody better equipped to do that than Sean McVay. I
I don't
just
think so. Yeah, I mean, it's the only offensive mind it would be Andy Reid. Like that's the only guy. But again, I think what you're saying is Sean McVay, that's his like look what he did with Puka Nacua last year.
yeah,
Like I mean, just you don't have to look that far. He's really, really good at carving niches out for guys. So I
right.
like it.
No, I do too. And the only other thing I'll say about the undrafted guys is, man, I just think Andrew Rame should have stayed another year. I just
Yep.
I don't know any other way to say it.
That
Obviously, look, he's an undrafted free agent. That's great. He has a chance to carve out a role, sure. But I think another year would have just done him wonders. I think he would have absolutely, if he had put together another really good
yeah.
year, I think he would have got drafted.
Not to mention he would have been a starting center in the SEC.
Yep.
That has value just by itself. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Right.
That's got to be frustrating. I guess the one other guy I would add, or just a thought I would add, is I think it's safe to say the Kansas City Chiefs like Oklahoma offensive linemen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just just a note. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, it is. It's cool. And, we'll see if McCade can do anything in Kansas City. But that's, obviously best of luck to Andrew Rame. I don't know everything that goes on and how those decisions are made, but I do think it's pretty clear staying another year
Yeah,
would have been good for him. But we'll
100%.
see, man. We'll see. Rooting for those guys. Before we talk about Gavin Freeman's, before we talk about him entering the portal, we have a shout out from our friends over at Mando. My guys, you ever lift a little too hard, you just forget to apply your daily deodorant and get hit by a truckload of BO from all directions? I mean, come on. Does
All
that
the
3
time.
in 1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? Well, here's the thing. From the founders of Lumi, Mando whole body deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. Best part is you can put Mando everywhere: pits, packages, feet, skin folds, back, knees, everywhere. To top it off, Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip: try their best selling scent, bourbon leather. It's a game changer. Once you experience fresher underarms, fresher package, and fresher feet, you'll never go back. And we've got a special offer for you guys. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. That is SHOPMANDO.com. It's the whole body deodorant package. Mando is seriously safe to use anywhere on your body. And it was created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odor, but gentle enough to use everywhere, allowing you to put Mando on family jewels without any worry. Here's the thing. Again, luckily, we have a discount code for you, just like I mentioned earlier, to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code INSIDER at shopmando.com. That is SHOPMANDO.com. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you. Brian, at what time was it when Gavin Freeman entered the portal last night? Like 4 in the morning? What time? It was like
It was it
like
was
11.
it was late enough that I think it was 11. It was late enough that it caught me off guard. Yeah, it was kind of one of those things where everybody knew that the the portal was closing at midnight, and you thought probably most of the names, if any more, were going to have pretty much been done at like 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. Like that's kind of what everybody assumed. And then Twitter blows up, and it's like, where did this come from? You know, it's one of those things for me. And I don't know how you feel about this. I'm sure you'll um, give all your thoughts here in a second. But the thing about it for me is it was shocking at first because you really just didn't expect it with him being a legacy, with him earning a scholarship there, going about it the hard way, like everything that he has done to garner the attention that he has from Brent Venables. But then as I started to look at it from like a playing time perspective, wow, like it's such a that room. This will be it just shows you just how far Oklahoma has come in the wide receiver room since Brent Venables got here and really since Emmett Jones took over. Um, there were instances where, as a true freshman, like you thought Gavin Freeman might end up being like playing a bigger role than he did. And then as a sophomore, he becomes like your primary special teams guy on punt return. Well, we saw it throughout the spring. It wasn't just at the spring game. It was pretty clear that Peyton Bowen has taken over that spot, regardless of Freeman's health. Uh, had taken over that spot, and then him finding the field as a wide receiver. I mean, you could legitimately put 5, 6, 7 guys ahead of him on the depth chart pretty easily without. And that's not a knock on him. That's just how far that room has come. So it makes sense. I think if he was going to do it, you have to do it now because he's coming off a year where he proved able to um, play a role on special teams for a place like Oklahoma, and he had offers from Texas Tech, Tulsa, and the other ones, Air Force, out of high school. So I'm sure he'll have more offers as a transfer, just given the fact that he was a scholarship player at Oklahoma. But um, you know, it's probably what's best for him in the long run. As hard as that is to say, you don't ever want to see a guy that's a legacy leave Norman. But yeah, I mean, it's probably the best thing for him in the long run, and wish the best to him.
I do think this is probably tougher from just a narrative story standpoint because everything you just mentioned. And I think it's, again, look, it's easy to get caught up in the emotions of games. And the reality is, Gavin Freeman was and this is hard to say about a guy that I don't think, I mean, he came as a walk on, didn't have super high expectations in the first place. But I do think, given how highly Jeff Lebby and Brent Venables talked about him heading into last year, I mean, Brent said, I asked the question at Big 12 Media Days about the wide receiver room, and Brent said he was the most impressive guy in the spring. I think all that, it was a little bit of a disappointing year for him. He just didn't make that big of an impact outside of that season opener against Arkansas State. Uh, um, I think it's disappointing how feel good of a story that was. You mentioned not only a legacy, but when he got the scholarship during the spring last year, how exciting all that was and how hard it was not to feel really happy for him.
Yeah.
And getting to talk to him, man, we've gotten to talk to him. He's a good kid. Hard not to root for a guy like that. But the reality is, everything you just said, man, I don't think this impacts OU on the field that much. I just don't know where the playing time was going to come from offensively. And then, yeah, the reality is, outside of that Arkansas State game, he was not an impact guy at best on special teams, and at worst committed some mistakes you just can't have.
Yeah.
I don't, like, that's not saying he doesn't have potential as a player. I absolutely think he can end up somewhere and make an impact.
100%.
But I mean, obviously his size and his frame make that a little bit more difficult at a place like Oklahoma. I think it's just impressive he earned time on the field regardless. He clearly has potential. But I think it's more surprising about the way it happened so close to the end of the portal window and the timing of the announcement. But yeah, I mean, he didn't make an impact in the spring. He missed a lot of it due to an injury. He didn't play at the spring game. Is he going to get playing time over Deion Burks or, Jaquays Petaway if Petaway sticks around? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, it's just he feels like and I hope this doesn't sound like an indictment, but he feels like a difference maker on a G5 team.
Yeah.
Like
Which,
like
nothing wrong with that.
he feels like a guy that could go carve out a role and he could be a difference maker for somebody that needs a wide receiver. So
Yeah.
hope he does it.
No, and I'm excited to see if Peyton Bowen is the main punt returner. I'm really excited to see that, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be
Talk about a difference maker in special teams.
and a guy that wants to do it. He wants to
Yes.
be on special teams.
Right. Yep.
He said that last year. Like he wants to. I think he's confident he can be a difference maker if he's the punt returner.
Yep.
He showed it in high school, and sometimes you have to twist guys' arms to get them on special teams. Not
Not
Peyton
him.
Bowen.
Yeah. It's well, and you can just see like some guys just have the vision for finding space. Like it's it's almost something you can't really even coach. Like you either have it or you don't, and you could see it in high school in his film where 90% of kids don't find the way into the end zone, but Peyton Bowen found a way. Like it just
Yeah.
you have those clips, and so yeah, I mean it's exciting. That's an athlete that you want the ball in his hands as many times as you can possibly get it. So um, I like him back there returning kicks.
Best of luck to Gavin Freeman.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a guy to, and I know he drew the the criticism from the fan base last year. Some of it definitely justified,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. But got to remember where this kid came from. His journey. He's an Oklahoma guy.
Yep.
Obviously, his dad played for OU. That's a guy you root for.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see where he lands, where he ends up, and if he can make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, let's talk about the headliner of headliners, the weekend of weekends in softball, and that is Bedlam this weekend to end the regular season, the final regular season series between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma ranked, both teams ranked inside the top 5. That's fun. That's number one. 2, Oklahoma leads Texas by just 1 game and Oklahoma State by just 2 games in the Big 12 standings. So it's going to come down to this final weekend. It's going to have a huge impact on where the seeding is or where the seedings are for the Big 12 tournament and potentially postseason standings. Absolutely. And first time Oklahoma State's playing at Love's Field. And Kelly Maxwell, 9 months after transferring from Oklahoma State after 4 years at Oklahoma State to Oklahoma, 9 months later, is now facing her former team. Brian, I don't know if you're going to get a more jam-packed weekend of storylines than this. You and I are both going to be in attendance. I genuinely am super super pumped for this series. Give me any of those storylines I just mentioned. Which one stands out to you? I know which one stands out to me, but which one stands out to you?
I mean, it has to be Kelly Maxwell.
Kelly
It
Maxwell
has to. It has to be that.
has to be.
So going back, I covered Big 12 softball before I started covering OU softball, particularly. So going back to that 2021 Women's College World Series, I believe it was 21. That sounds right. Kelly Maxwell was incredible. Like her and Haley Dolcini for Texas that year were just next level. Or is it 21 or 22?
21.
21.
Kelly, that World Series run, I mean, I think at the end of that year, you would have maybe said Kelly Maxwell is the best pitcher in softball.
Yes.
Incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, she was over 300 strikeouts that year, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and it was one of those things where you couldn't really blame Gajewski for doing it the way that he did, but you almost had to ride her into the ground as far as her arm goes because she was the best they had. Like, and it really wasn't that close. She also had one of their two-way player. Her name is I'm forgetting her name. She's gone now, but she played for him at the plate, continued batting for them, but couldn't pitch because of an injury. You lost her and Maxwell just kind of had to gut it out, and she did, and she was incredible. For her to transfer to Oklahoma, from a player's perspective, you really can't blame somebody for wanting to. I mean, there wasn't really. If you look at Oklahoma State, there's not a program in the country whether this is fortunate or unfortunate, there's not a program in the country that has been more successful than Oklahoma State outside of Oklahoma over the last half decade. They are the only two schools that have been to each of the last five Women's College World Series. Um, they are both, incredibly competitive. I mean, yes, in that span, Oklahoma's been 23-2 against the Cowgirls. So, it's not, there is still this divide between the two. So for Maxwell to come to Oklahoma, one, it keeps her close to where she's been living the last several years. It makes a ton of sense. But I think what makes the storyline so much fun, or you know, divisive, whatever the word you want to, whatever what makes that storyline so easy to follow is the fact that Kenny Gajewski came out and said that he was disappointed. He was disappointed that she chose Oklahoma. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that that Kelly is a girl that she's the way that she plays softball. She doesn't really let the emotion hang out there on her sleeve. She's very collected, but I have to imagine that this weekend it's going to be a little more difficult for her to keep her emotions in check just because of how much this series is going to mean. So I don't see her fist pumping and going, Geordie ball on on anybody, and really like pacing the circle or anything. But um, yeah, I think this one's going to be really big for her because it's full circle, right? Like it's full circle.
We didn't we didn't get to talk to Kelly Maxwell yesterday at availability, which I think was disappointing, but I understood it.
Yeah.
Patty kind of wrote off the question, kind of shrugged it off, just said, she's not looking in the rearview mirror, we're looking forward. And I think that makes sense. That's the rational, drama free response. But this weekend's gonna have juice. It
Oh
just
yeah.
is
Yep.
because of this. You can't say what Kenny said during the offseason. You can't say everything he said it publicly and there not be juice. Not to mention, this isn't. I mean, we're getting more and more common with the transfer portal of players facing their former teams, but this isn't just anybody facing their former team.
Right.
This is one of the most impactful marquee players Oklahoma State softball has ever had. She was there for 4 years, and now she plays for their biggest rival. And
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, Kelly Maxwell's been incredible this year. She's been fantastic, and she's been even better since conference play started. 1.59 ERA. She's pitched over 60 innings. She's pitched 30 more innings than any other pitcher on OU's roster in conference play. And as conference play's gone on, man, we've talked about it before, but they continue to rely on her a lot. And in 3 of the last 4 weekends, she has made at least 2 different appearances, including this last weekend at UCF, where she gets the start in game 1, kills it. Kirsten Deal kills it in game 2. We'll talk about that in a second. Kirsten Deal has been on fire. And then game
Nails.
3, it's Nicole May in the circle, and Kelly Maxwell has to come in to relieve her
Yeah.
in the third inning. I think third inning. Um, Kelly, like, so it's not only just all the stuff she did at Oklahoma State, but she's still. I mean, she's picked up right where she left off since she's gotten in Norman. And when you look at this weekend, man, this is going to be a just a pitching delight this
Mm.
weekend.
Yep.
You've got Lexi Kilfoyle for Oklahoma State, who has probably been the best pitcher in the Big 12 this year and probably one of the top 5 pitchers in all of softball. That's
Yep.
how good she's been. She leads the Big 12 since in ERA for the season and in ERA since conference play started. 1.35. She has pitched more innings, Brian, than any other pitcher in softball, I believe, in the Big 12. 86 innings pitched in conference play. It's been insane.
Mm.
Lexi Kilfoyle first in the conference since Big 12 play began in ERA. Number 2, Kirsten Dill. Number 3,
Yep.
Kelly Maxwell. You're gonna get, and let's not, don't forget about Ivy Rosenberry for Oklahoma State. She's also been really
Yes.
good. She's top 10 in ERA. But Oklahoma State leans heavily on Lexi Kilfoyle. Oklahoma leans heavily, to a lesser extent, but still heavily on Kelly Maxwell. We're gonna get a Maxwell Kilfoyle duel, man.
Oh, I hope that's the
It's
Friday
gonna be,
night.
yeah.
Yes, I hope
It's
that's the
gotta
Friday
be.
night matchup. Oh, that's gonna be awesome.
Well, and I think we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, considering how not only the emotions and the stakes of and all the storylines of this, um, this is a series Oklahoma State needs to win just to better position themselves for the postseason. They can win the Big 12 if they win this series. And Oklahoma needs to win the series to stay up top. I'm curious to see how much those two specifically get thrown. Is this a they both start game 1, game 3? Is this they start game 1 and they both come in as relief pitchers in game 3? I don't know.
Mm,
Um, Neither of these teams can afford to mess around.
no.
They really can't.
Yeah.
I'm curious from the Oklahoma perspective. We did see a switch up last weekend. Kirsten Deal got the start in game 2, not Nicole May. And I think that's notable. You
Yep.
typically throw your top 2 pitchers game 1 and game 2. It had been Nicole May all year. It's finally Kirsten Deal. And it's hard to blame this coaching staff with how Kirsten Deal's pitching. I mean,
Yeah.
she's top 5 in the entire in all of college softball in ERA.
Yep.
She's been just fantastic. I'm curious to see. I don't know. I mean, what do you think, man? I think their preference would be to pitch Maxwell, Deal, May, with Maxwell as a reliever in game 3 if they need her. But there's
Yeah.
part of me that wonders, is it Maxwell game 1 and game 3? Because Brian, the reality is, and this isn't, look, Nicole May has done a lot for this OU team, but she's just, I mean, this isn't the Nicole May we've seen of past years. Her ERA in conference play is 3.6.
Yeah.
It just, for one reason or another, and I have some reasons why I think she's been asked to do things a little bit outside her comfort zone this year in terms of the types of pitches she's throwing. But
Mm-hmm.
Nicole May just struggled last weekend against UCF. She hasn't had some great outings. And I think if you're OU, do you go in thinking we're throwing Maxwell one in games 1 and 3? Is that what you, I mean, is that what you're thinking?
I think so. Yeah. With what Kirsten Deal has done, it gives you. I mean, look, you still have a very capable staff behind those two. I think the level of success that you've seen from Oklahoma in the circle over the last few years is certainly going to play a role in how people perceive the room. Um, there's definitely programs out there that play good softball that would absolutely be happy with a 3.6 ERA out of their pitcher. Now that's just not how Oklahoma has played. I think some of that has to do with just seeing Kirsten Deal take the first outing that she had this year, like the first start was a little shaky. And I think
Yeah.
everybody was like, oh crap, like what, what are we going to do if, if Maxwell can't go or she can't go the distance. And then since then, Deal has just been nails. She's back to back Big 12 pitcher of the week. Has been, as you said, one of the most impressive players at the position. And when you have her and Maxwell able to, you know, play off of each other, both of them being left-handed, um, there's just a lot of like the rise and the speed and all that you're changing back and forth between these two. It's just really difficult to make those adjustments game to game, and so I think that really plays a factor in it. Nicole May, as you said, she's done so much for Oklahoma. She's a major part of that senior core that's gotten Oklahoma to the point that they are success wise. And I really do think that she's going to be a pivotal part of what Oklahoma does, particularly in regional play. The first part of if Oklahoma is able to make it to Oklahoma City, I think it'll be important to have her in that instance as well. But when it's all laid out on the table, when everything is at stake, which it is this weekend,
It is.
I think you have to go with Maxwell 1, Deal 2, and then probably Maxwell 3 if she can go.
I mean, I agree with you, but also, I mean, they're asking a lot. If that's what ends up happening, they're asking a lot of Kelly Maxwell, not
Mm-hmm.
only just in terms of innings thrown and pitches thrown and how good this Oklahoma State team is, but just the emotional
Emotionally, yeah.
toll of this weekend. Not to mention, I mean, this is senior weekend for this incredible group of seniors that Oklahoma has. Then yeah, you throw the postseason implications on top of it. You're asking a lot of Kelly Maxwell, but in some ways, this is if that is what ends up happening, this is a preview for the postseason. This is probably how OU is going to handle things when the going gets tough,
Yep.
which then puts the focus on how does Kirsten Deal handle this type of environment because Kelly Maxwell can't throw every pitch. She can't throw every inning. You're going to need somebody else, and I think you have to be really encouraged by what we've seen from Kirsten Dill over the last several weeks at this point, and she was really good over the weekend. I think the other thing for me, man, is I really am curious to see how this OU offense stacks up against this Oklahoma State pitching staff. This Oklahoma offense has been they're really good as always, but I mean, we have seen they've gone through by their standards some ebbs and flows, and we even saw that this past weekend. They had two really good offensive outings, and then that game two, they win 2-1, and the bats just weren't going. And this is an Oklahoma State team that their collective ERA is 2.34. Um, Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State are at the top of like every single leaderboard in the Big 12 stats. But to me, as impressive as Ella Parker and Cassidy Pickering have been, and OU's going to need them to make some plays. This is a series that's got Jada Coleman, Tiari Jennings, Kenzie Hansen, Lissa Brito. They're gonna those veterans, those seniors are gonna need to make big time hits
Yep.
because this is going to be as good of a staff as Oklahoma has faced all year. Lexi Kilfoyle is as good of a pitcher Oklahoma's faced all year. And look, if Oklahoma, I mean, Oklahoma's going to have to get the bats going. They're just going to have to. But which one are you more? If I had to ask you, are you more curious about the Oklahoma offense against the Oklahoma State pitching staff or the Oklahoma pitching staff against the Oklahoma State offense? Which one is a more interesting matchup to you?
I think it's the OU offense and the Oklahoma State pitching staff. Um, if Oklahoma's offense can find the explosiveness that it did in Game 3 against UCF, I think that that's going to carry OU a long way. Um, I think that's really been what's missing, really for Oklahoma recently, is you haven't seen that the long ball just hasn't played as much as a role of a role for them. And then against UCF, they go off for 5 homers and 11 runs, and it looks a lot more like what you saw from OU in previous years. It sounds really crazy, and like they've only lost 4 games this season. So we're talking about a team that is still the elite of the elite whenever it comes to statistics and winning percentage, all that stuff. But Oklahoma's felt a little more vulnerable this year. It feels like, this isn't the team. This isn't the same team. Last year, early on, the number 2 team in the country, UCLA, they go in and beat them 16-0 in 5 innings, and they hit like 8 home runs, and it's like just not even close. It was the inevitable. This Oklahoma team still feels like they are one of, if not the best in college softball. However, the gap is closed a lot, and Texas has made the gap. Obviously they've in Austin actually overcame Oklahoma. So, um, I think the big thing this weekend is that offense needs to find its consistency again at the plate. As you said, I think in our last podcast, Oklahoma's led the country in runners left on base for several years because they get so many players on base. You can An inning has to end. That's just how it works. But recently, it's been 11 or 12 runners left on base in games that they maybe lost or were a lot closer than they should have been. And I think Oklahoma is going to have to find a way, and I'm sure that that's been something that JT Gasso has been like hammering home. It's just that they've got to find a way to hit better with runners in scoring position, and they did last week. To their credit, last week they were a lot better in that instance. So yeah, this is a big moment, and I think the big thing, like the one major takeaway for this weekend that I'm going to look at is that group of seniors. They are entering almost uncharted territory because they're going into this series. I mean, yes, it's always been you've got to win this series to win the Big 12. Most of the time, it's either you or Oklahoma State in that instance. This week, it's if you don't sweep Oklahoma State, if you lose a game and Texas is able to sweep Texas Tech in Lubbock, they win the Big 12 regular season title, and Oklahoma would not be the champion for the first time since 2011. So I don't know. It feels like there's a lot at stake for Oklahoma here, and it's just an interesting dynamic because as dominant as they've been, this team still feels like it's trying to get its identity back, if that makes sense.
I agree. I do feel like they have been really, really, really good. And I think they're trying to tap into the thing that has separated them, which is going from really, really good to unstoppable.
Right.
And they haven't hit that unstoppable tier as much this year. And
Right.
they've just instead been really, 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 really good.
Right.
But I think they're trying to find that unstoppable tier that has kind of defined this team the last couple of years. So, um, I mean, you're right, man. And look, this is a good Oklahoma State offense. Don't count them out either. The thing, and I've said this before, but I'm really curious. Oklahoma State's pitching staff is best in the conference in walks. They've only walked 46 batters. That's going to be something to watch. That was something we watched against Texas, and that played a role. So that's going to be, I think, something to monitor. But yeah, I think this is a huge. I mean, yeah, it's the regular season, and Oklahoma gears up for the postseason. But not only all the implications that we've talked about, but I think if you're Oklahoma, you're trying to get an emphatic sweep to enter against a really good team to enter the postseason. I think this is one of the bigger regular season weekends for Oklahoma in recent memory.
Yep.
It just is. And my hot take is, while I think the likeliest outcome is Oklahoma sweeps them, I think Oklahoma gets the series win, but I think Oklahoma State takes a game. I think
do
so.
too. I do
That's
too.
I'm not trying to anger any. I'm
No.
just trying to give objective analysis.
Yeah. Same
I
thing.
think
That's where I'm at.
I think Oklahoma wins a game or wins the series, and I think both the games they win, I think that offense does its thing, but I think Oklahoma State takes one in a low scoring game.
Yep.
I do. Either
Agreed.
way, I'm not even saying that's most likely. I'm saying that's what I think will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad we're on the same page there. But look, 6:30 on Friday on FS1, which is interesting. Saturday, ESPN prime time at noon, and then Sunday at 3 on ESPN2. So again, want more evidence that this is going to be something that a lot of sports fans are watching. It's all 3 games nationally televised, and Saturdays at noon.
Yep.
It's just going to be a big weekend, Brian. I'm honestly I'm pretty dang excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm pumped. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it is. Well, we'll be here next week to break it all down and also to preview what should be another exciting postseason run for Oklahoma. But until then, that is going to do it for here on this episode of the Oklahoma Drill. Make sure to like and subscribe this OU Insider YouTube channel to get all of the content we're going to be pumping out over the next few days. Head over to OUinsider.com, become a VIP member. All kinds of transfer portal madness still happening. What's happening with Dominic Williams? Something. Stuff's happening. You're going to want to head over there to get all behind the scenes action. Brody Lusk is killing it over on the basketball beat. And of course, softball is still in full throttle. Me and Brian will have you covered over there and over here on this YouTube channel for the entirety of the rest of the season for OU. Until next week, we will see you guys on the next episode of the Oklahoma Drill.